You mentioned all the road courses coming up. James from New York has called in at 844 NASCAR NBC. I think James wants to ask you about all the road courses coming up. James, go ahead. You're on with Chris Buescher.
Hey, Chris. I wanted to ask you, after your runner-up finish at Sonoma yesterday, as well as your teammate Brad Keselowski finishing 10th, what have you guys learned, and the RFK organization as well learned for Road America coming up in July? And do you think that could help you get a win going into Road America as well as your teammate Brad Keselowski?
Yeah, 100%, James. I would say that we went to COTA early in the year, and we missed it. We just we weren't where we needed to be. We came back, everybody back at the shop really took a step back, regrouped, dove into why we weren't good there, and really basically got us better, got us really competitive, so that we were able to go to the Glen test. We did the tire test not right before the 600. We learned a lot coming out of there and had a lot of speed there. Obviously, you're only comparing to two other cars, but we came out of there feeling really confident that we had learned a lot about road racing across the board. And Sonoma is its own animal, right? It's really slow, really abrasive on tires. It's very technical. It's completely different than Watkins Glen, but a lot of what we learned at the Glen test actually did carry over, and because of that, we feel really strongly that it'll continue to carry over towards Road America and towards Indy Road Course. And I know the Roval's a ways away, but I think that a lot of what we have figured out is going to apply to each and every road course we have coming up.
It's cool for us to watch. Well, Chris, we have James on the phone. What question do you have, James?
Hey, Chris. Congratulations on your win. I wanted to ask, after finishing third at Richmond, another short track, what did you learn going into Bristol that helped contribute to your win on Saturday night?
Yeah, James, I appreciate the question. I think it probably started farther back than that. It was Dover. Dover was our first pole, but also it was really a turning point in our season of finding some things that worked well for our race cars, what I needed to find for a feel underneath this next-gen platform. And I think we were able to take that and apply it to a lot of short tracks going forward. Richmond ended up being the most recent success story out of it, but I think that Richmond has been a place where I've really struggled in the past and went in there with high hopes, but a little lower expectations, and we were able to really overcome the expectations that I guess I had set going in. So that was a really special weekend for us, and to be battling for it, I think between that and Sonoma, that kind of goes into the idea that you have to lose a few or you have to lose one before you can win one, and those are the ones we go back and think about how we could have been a little bit better, how we could execute a little bit smoother. It's so hard to win in this series, right? There's 19 different winners now, and to put all that together to turn it into a win, you have to do everything right, because if you don't, somebody else will, and they're going to take advantage of it. So it's tough. The competition level is really high, and to get the job done, you have to be flawless in every department. And so that was a lot of what we took away from those other races is, we missed a little bit here, could have done a little cleaner job here. How do we improve on that? And it's a little easier going into Bristol because I absolutely love that racetrack. I've had really good races there through my entire career. We were talking about it leading up to the race on Thursday. Scott and I were together in 2015 on the Xfinity side and watched an Xfinity win slip through our fingertips on a green-white checker and had a pretty big stutter on fuel, and still haunts us to this day, or did until about 2 days.
Let's stay on the lines and talk to James in New York. James, welcome to NASCAR American Motor Mouths.
Hey, Michael. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, James?
I'm doing good. So my question is, after scoring 2 top 10s in the Daytona 500 and at Talladega, which are two similarly tracks, as well as Watkins Glen yesterday on the road course, what have you and the 34 team learned going into Daytona once again for the regular season finale next weekend?
Well, I mean, the good thing is we know what we have to do, right? We don't have to worry about stage points. We don't have to worry about anything like that. We just got to try to win the race. So, really it's about taking that approach, being aggressive with the strategy, making sure we're working, with our Ford teammates across the board, And we've seen these races really come down to executing that final, green flag stop and making sure that you do that well and you're playing that right. And so I think that these races really come down to track position. But leading up to that is that last green flag stop. So you got to have a good plan. You got to work with your friends well. And, at the same time, you just got to be prepared for anything, because at Daytona, we've seen it go, green and not a lot of action. And we've seen it be 3 wide the entire race and really challenging with a lot of wrecks. So I'm just going to do the same thing I've always done there. And that seems to work for me. Statistically, a lot of top 10s there and being in position at the end. And I can't really put a pinpoint on why that is, but I just kind of do my thing there and it seems to work out.
James in New York, you're on with Chase Briscoe. Go ahead, bud.
Hey, Chase. How you doing today?
Hey, man, how are you? Good.
I'm doing good. I wanted to ask, since you won at Darlington in the Xfinity Series in 2020, what have you learned going into your very first NASCAR Cup Series playoff race at Darlington this weekend?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, just how to manage your stuff there. I feel like I always have a lot of short run speed. In the Xfinity car, it didn't necessarily hurt you as much because the runs were a lot shorter, but the Cup car, the runs and just the amount of laps you have to run on a set of tires seem to be a lot longer. And I always think I'm hauling the nail, the first 20, 25 laps of a run, and then 40 laps into it, everybody's driving back by me. So I think, just with the Cup races being a lot longer green flag runs, I feel like I've got enough of a notebook now from the Xfinity stuff and even the couple Cup races I've ran, just to understand that balance of how hard to run at the beginning of the run versus trying to save your stuff for the end of the run. And, that's a hard balance to have because track position is so important. Restarts, you have to go, you have to run 100%. But then once you get spread out, you can kind of start maintaining and saving your stuff. And there's not a lot of racetracks we go to where that even comes into play anymore, but Darlington is definitely one of them. And that's something that I feel like until you have that experience there, it's hard to tell yourself, hey, this is the pace I need to run, where you see guys that are successful at Darlington, they're not always the fastest at the beginning of the run. Denny Hamlin isn't pulling away by 5 seconds the first 20 laps of a run, but the last 20 to 30 laps of the run, he's normally way faster than everybody else. So trying to just look at what those guys are doing and how I can try to mimic that the best I can and, not get so caught up in having speed at the front of the run, but really trying to manage it for the end.
Got a couple folks who have called in at 844 NASCAR NBC to chat with you. James in New York has a question for you. James, go ahead. You're on with Eric Jones.
Hey, how you doing there, Eric?
I'm good.
All right. I wanted to ask, since you won at Dover for the Xfinity Series with Joe Gibbs Racing in 2016 and coming off your strong run at Talladega, does that give you more confidence going into Dover next weekend as well as the 2022 season?
Well, I think a bit. Like I mentioned, Dover's just been a hit or miss track for me, and I felt like the Xfinity race there we won a while back, I felt like I really had it figured out and figured out what I needed to do. And from that race, I've really changed my approach, my driving style a lot to Dover. I think some of the things I was doing that day probably weren't right totally on my end. We just had a pretty good car and ended up in a good spot at the end of the race and took advantage of it. And then the Cup cars too are just a lot different compared to the Xfinity cars then. So I think maybe this car will relate to that a little bit more with the throttle time that you're carrying, or at least it seems like we're going to be carrying. But, for sure, just the confidence and the momentum off of Talladega is great. We've been having a couple of hit or miss races, just having issues and things not go the way we wanted it to. So just nice to have a good finish, get some points back going our way again, and hopefully get that same thing going. We just need to stockpile some points. We're so close to that playoff mark right now. You don't want to put yourself in a spot where you lose a big chunk in 1 week. So it's nice. Hopefully we can just gain a lot of points here over the next month or so.
James in New York. James, you're on with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing there, Ricky?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. I wanted to ask, after your second place finish at Dover, what have you learned going into Darlington this weekend, which is a track similar to Dover?
Yeah, the high speeds and high banking is definitely, lend yourself to, I guess the same philosophy of a setup. We're definitely going to have some differences in setup, but, for us, it's just, trying to get something close. And, I got some simulator work I got to do tomorrow. And, hopefully we can get that dialed in. We felt like we had a really good simulator test before we went to Dover, and you got to start close in practice. You only got 15 minutes before you got to go qualify, and that's kind of the key to a successful weekend is unloading where you need to be. So that sim session I have tomorrow is going to be important, but it'll be we got some good notes from Dover.
Well, Denny, as you know, another short track in Virginia coming up is Martinsville. And this is a show for the fans, NASCAR American Motor Mouths. And I think we've got James on the line who'd like to ask you about Martinsville. James, go ahead with your question for Denny Hamlin.
All right. I wanted to ask, after your win yesterday at Richmond once again, does that give you and your teammates at Joe Gibbs Racing more confidence going into Martinsville at Virginia once again next weekend?
Well, one thing's for sure is that we were short on confidence after Phoenix, and that's a track that the closest correlation that we could bring to Richmond, which is kind of sad to say because they are so actually different. But that's how we set up our cars. We use a datum point of saying, okay, that let's say we ran good at Phoenix. We go to Richmond, our setups should be this much different. Well, we all ran like crap at Phoenix, so we had no information to go off of. So we had to guess at Richmond. The guess was right, and now when we go back to tracks like that, we should have a point of reference. Martinsville, maybe the closest thing that we have to draw is from the Clash. I would say none of us were good there, so we're gonna have to guess again. That's why I was saying that. That's why I'm saying it would not surprise me if we win or run 15th. It's until we establish a good point on those types of tracks, it's just going to be a crapshoot.
Got a couple of phone calls for you, if that's cool. James is on the line. James, you're on with Kurt Busch. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing today, Kurt?
Doing great, James.
All right. I have a couple of quick questions for you. With 2 races left with Chip Ganassi in NASCAR, what has been your favorite memory racing for him? And have you ever hinted about racing for Chip again in the Indy 500 again someday?
Those are 2 awesome questions. I mean, my favorite memory, it's not even racing related, but of course, winning at Kentucky, winning at Vegas, we got Atlanta for Gear Wrench. My favorite memory was, hey, meet me for dinner. It's our first time in Daytona Beach together, and the Daytona 500 is in a couple days, and I'm all dressed up, ready to go. He sends me an address. It's a strip mall sushi joint behind a gas station next to the racetrack. And I'm dressed with a jacket on, ready to go to dinner. And there we are, just hanging out at a sushi joint. I'm like, whoa, all right, Chip. And then, one of the reasons why I signed on to race for Chip was the chance at sports cars, IndyCar, his extreme SUV team. He's involved in all facets of motorsports. And so the door's still open. I still see it as an opportunity later to run, but more probably on the sports car side, doing like 24 hours of Le Mans or going to different spots around the world and using that connection and that juice to find a good competitive car.
Cool. Sounds like good stuff, and that sounds very Chip-esque for that restaurant, by the way. So that sounds kind of like him now that you know him a little bit better. So.
All right, AJ, I think we have a fan calling. James, you have a question for AJ?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, with practice and qualifying for the race on the road course in Texas, what were some of the similarities and the differences that you learned over in COTA that could carry over to Sonoma in a couple of weeks?
Well, James, I mean, they're completely different racetracks. The one thing about it was that at COTA, it really used the Goodyear tires as well. So you get a lot of wear there. You really have to fight wheel spin and kind of lose a lot of lap time throughout the course of a run. So that's similar to Sonoma, and the way those races play out, you can really burn the rear tires up very quick there at Sonoma. So that's some of the stuff that you learn of maybe in the setup of okay, this works to save the rear tires. We can apply that to Sonoma. But in general, they're completely different racetracks. COTA is unique because it's got some really high-speed section through the S's, and on the backside of the racetrack, you had some really slow first-gear corners. Sonoma's all kind of medium to low-speed corners. So different setups, but definitely how a driver used the rear tires and what you did setup wise to maybe save those rear tires a little bit better than the next team will definitely help at Sonoma.
So Ty, this is a call-in show, as you know. I don't know if the questions will get any easier from fans, but that is where we're going next with some questions for you on NASCAR America Motor Mouth. And we're going to get started with James is on the line. James, go ahead with your question for Ty Norris.
Hey, Ty. Congratulations on your big win with Daniel at Sonoma on Sunday. My question is that with Daniel and Ross Chastain both getting their first wins on a road course, how much confidence do you have at Trackhouse Racing with both cars going into the playoffs now?
Well, great question. Thanks for calling in. But, you know, we have two things. We continue to say we got to stay hungry and we have to stay humble. And so when we start thinking playoffs and talking playoffs, we're going to lose sight of these next 10 weeks that we need to sort of continue to prepare for a run. And we've had a lot of success. Honestly, when we went to our first test in December at Charlotte Motor Speedway, they ran a 10-lap race, and Ross was in the car, and I thought we had the wrong engine spacer on it. He was so much faster. He was so fast, and it was sort of remarkable. And then the next time Daniel got in the car, the same thing happened, and we were just like, wow, we actually really have something here. We have something very special here. And then when we went to the road course at COTA, we saw both cars were very capable. Both drivers are exceptionally talented. So, yeah, when we go to road courses, we feel good. We go to intermediates, we feel incredible. We feel great at speedways. I say our short track program leaves a little left to be worked on. But yeah, I feel like when you look at the races, the first few races in the playoffs, we've had some success at all three of the first round tracks, and it gives us confidence to go there to at least be relevant and competitive. And as you know, these races play out in odd ways, fuel mileage, restarts, or whatever. So, you know, nothing could be predicted, but I certainly think we'll be competitive.
Well, a lot of questions about Talladega, Christopher. I think we've got one on the line for you as well. NASCAR American Motor Mouths welcomes James. James, you're on with Christopher Bell.
Hey, Christopher. How you doing today?
Hey, James.
Hey, how's it going? I wanted to ask you, since your two Cup wins came on two distinctively different tracks, what have you learned going into Talladega that could help you win your first super speedway race?
Yeah, so, you know, one thing that I think I've learned across my two wins is just being there at the end of the races, both at Daytona Road Course and at Loudon. I did not dominate the race by any means, and you know, that was a big reason of why I was able to win, was just being the best at the right moment and surviving, getting to the end of the race, and having the best car at the end of the race. So with that being said, you know, I can take that mentality going into Talladega, but unfortunately everybody already knows that, right? So the biggest thing is going to be making sure that you see the checkered flag, and whenever the white flag flies, you still got to make sure you got another 2.5 miles in you. So we all know how the speedway races are, and seeing the end of those things are extremely difficult.
We're going to be part of that distraction. We're going to steal his driver on Thursday.
Yeah,
and sit down with
like
all of them. But then I'm done with him, Adam. You can have him back starting Friday morning. I won't bother your driver anymore.
All right. Adam, let's grab a phone call here at 844 NASCAR NBC. James from New York. You're on with Adam Stevens. Go ahead, James.
Hey, Adam. Just want to say congratulations on your win. And I just wanted to ask, what was your initial reaction, as well as Christopher Bell's reaction, to Ross Chastain's incredible drive in turns 3 and 4 on the last lap at Martinsville yesterday?
Well, you know what? It still hasn't even sunk in for me. I have never in my life seen a more gutsy move than what he did. And it's one thing to have the thought to make that move, but to make your physical body shift to fifth and mash the gas when you've been shifting to third and mashing the brake, when you see that wall coming at you, I can't imagine the conversation he had with himself going down the backstretch to make that happen. Just amazing. And when I first saw the clip, I think it might have been on the big screen or it might have been on my phone. And I'm like, well, of course it looks impressive when they play it double time. I mean, it looks like he's going fast. I mean, big deal, right? And then I'm like, no, that's real time, and I still can't believe it. I've looked at the SMT data 10 times and shown everybody that's come to my office to congratulate us on the win, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, it was definitely a hold your breath moment.
All right, man, we got another caller. James, start talking, man. Tell us what you need.
All right, Tyler, great job last night. I still feel bad for you after the spin, but my question is, after scoring 3 top 5s at 3 different tracks, Phoenix, COTA, and then the dirt track at Bristol, does that give you and your crew chief, Randall Burnett, a lot of confidence going into Talladega Superspeedway next Sunday?
Well, I don't know. I guess not. Just because Talladega is such a monster in its own right. You can do everything right and still find yourself sitting 36th at the end of the day. You can do everything wrong and find yourself finishing the race 5th. I've done that a few times in my Cup career, hit about everything and still get a top 10 out of it somehow with a wrecked car. So it's just one of those races where you got to have a game plan, and you got to be ready to throw that game plan out the window on lap 20 when things start changing. But we'll just see how it goes. The Fords were really strong at Daytona. Atlanta, it was a little bit more even across the field just because of how much handling came into play. But Talladega, I think it'll be even more, wide open. There's just more grip. The track's wider, and the corners aren't as aggressive to the straightaways. So hopefully we've caught up a little bit to those Fords, but I think we're definitely going to have to work really hard to be in position to, get another one of those top 5s and hopefully a win too.
All right, let's take a phone call from James in New York, where NASCAR is headed this weekend, race at Watkins Glen. James, you're on with Randall Burnett on NASCAR America Motor Mouths. What you got?
Hey, Randall. I wanted to ask, after winning at both Road America and Indianapolis, what have you and Tyler learned going into Watkins Glen this weekend, as well as the Charlotte Roval for the playoffs?
Well, definitely, we, like I said, we've been looking at the setup stuff. It is going to be probably a little bit different than what we've had. The tires, the same. So we've got all those notes to go off of. But just this road course is so much higher speed. We see some good speeds at COTA as well, but we also see some really, really low speeds at COTA. So, it's just a little bit different animal. And it's always been that way. Even when we were just racing at Watkins Glen and Sonoma, they're 2 completely different animals. So we've been working on, the braking zones and getting through the bus stop good and over the bumps there.
Let's grab one phone call real quick. James from New York has called in to chat with you. James, you're on with Noah Gregson. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing there, Noah?
What's going on?
Doing good, buddy. I wanted to ask, every time you run in the Xfinity Series for Junior Motorsports, what do you learn that helps apply with Colleague Racing and Beard Motorsports in the Cup Series?
Oh, that's a good question, James. The biggest thing is just like fuel strategy and knowing when you're going to pit. That's one thing that I've been kind of focusing on, and I feel really comfortable, almost like I can call the strategy of an Xfinity race. It's fairly simple, actually, to call the strategy of an Xfinity race, but just being on top of it and being on the same page as the crew chief in the Cup cars that I'm running with the 62 with Beard Motorsports, and along with the 16 over at Colleague Racing. They both are great race teams, and but it always helps to be on the same page. So with more laps and more opportunity to pit under green and different circumstances, being on top of it has really helped me. And that's probably the most important thing, is the strategy side that I can take from learning it in Xfinity and taking that over to the Cup Series side.
Mike, we're going to go to the phones, and we're going to talk to James. James, what's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing there, mate?
Good,
I'm doing
buddy.
wonderful.
What's up?
How are you?
All right, doing good. I wanted to ask Myatt, after finishing second at Portland this past weekend, what have you learned that will help you going into Road America next month, as well as the Indianapolis and the Charlotte Roval later this season?
Well, a lot of what I learned is actually mostly based on what's happening when it rains. I learned how to push myself to be a little better in certain areas of the track, but as far as Road America and Indy goes, if it doesn't rain, then I'm not sure I'll be able to take much from Portland this weekend, because I feel like, Road America is so much faster of a racetrack. I feel like you're doing, 160, 170 in a turn one, and it's before you get to the brakes at least. But, if it does rain, then it's definitely going to help me out a lot, because I figured out a lot of stuff this weekend. And so that's a good question. It's definitely going to help me out if it rains.
Thanks for calling.